welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and we are here to discuss an absolutely delightful paranormal cozy mystery. So delightful, such just like an absolutely beautiful way to spend a Labor Day weekend. Could not ask for a better 3 days. I am so excited for this conversation. So let's turn it over. Could I ask you to introduce yourselves and your book, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Rosiee Thor, and I'm one of the authors of Dead and Breakfast.
And I'm Kat Hillis, the other one.
Dead and Breakfast is about two gay vampires who move to rural Oregon to open a bed and breakfast, only to find themselves the center of a murder investigation when the mayor is found dead in their garden. And it is goofy and silly and should not be taken even remotely seriously.
It is that pitch when it hit my inbox that just like immediately I had to hit reply and see if an interview would be available because such a great concept. And the dynamic between Arthur and Sal is just absolutely lovely. It's a relationship that I could spend just like hours and hours, days and days observing and spending time with. But before we talk about the book just yet, could you both talk a little bit about your journeys as writers and how you came to collaborate?
Oh, it's,
Well,
it's quite the story.
our journeys are quite intertwined, actually. Do you want me to take this one, Kat, or do you want to?
You can start. I can
Okay, great.
chime
Well,
in.
my journey as a writer started, I guess started is the wrong term, but let's say we'll put a little pin here. I joined a mentorship program back in the day. It doesn't exist anymore. And I had a really wonderful experience working with a mentor who was a published author. And so once I got an agent and started kind of barreling down the publishing path, I decided that I was going to try to do the same thing for another writer. So I signed up to be a mentor through a different program. And lo and behold, Kat appeared in my inbox with an incredible book. And I was like, this is an author who has the right sensibilities to make it in the industry, who has really cool, unique ideas and a great, fresh voice. And I'm excited to work with them. And then pretty quickly, we became good friends. And during that process, I was the intern for a literary agent. And during that internship, I came across many a cozy mystery came through my inbox, and I was complaining to that agent one day that I wish more cozy mysteries were funny and about vampires. And I was kind of just like off the cuff, like, and about I wish they were about vampires, which I was a thought I'd never had before in my entire life, but there I was expressing it. And I kind of riffed on this idea, came up with a title, Dead and Breakfast, for this fictional cozy mystery that I had no plans to write. And somewhere along the line, I had to quit that internship, and Kat ended up taking over. And we ended up continuing to talk about the internship, talking about this silly, cozy idea that I was never going to write. And flash forward a couple of years later, Kat was like, "What if we co-wrote it?" And it just immediately started to write itself from there.
Yeah, though I remember it as you came to me and you had told me the pitch and I got jealous in that way of like when you hear a really good pun and you're like, why didn't I think of that? Like this is like such it's like, man, I'd love to write that. Oh well. And then later they were like, what if we co-write? And I was
Oh,
like, I'm already on board, like
maybe it
signed
was me
up.
who suggested it. I don't remember. I just remember that it didn't click. Like the idea didn't feel like a real book until Kat came into the picture. Until it was like, we're gonna write this together. I was like, this is an impossible book that I could never pull off in a million years. I don't know how to do this. And then as soon as it clicked for me that Kat and I could do it together, it was like, this is gonna be the best experience of my life. And then it was.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like it is that you bring to each other's writing, whether that's like the process of writing or the stuff that you write? What's unique about like your stuff together, this book, as opposed to like your individual writing?
This book is much funnier. And I think Rosie and I are both funny authors. So like I'm naturally a little bit funny, and Rosie's very funny. And then together it's like exponential because it's just like a lot of the planning is just us yes anding, until, it hits the
We
right
love for
level of
everybody to
absurd.
know. So when a joke starts rolling, there's no stopping it. We just build on it until it becomes whatever it's going to become. At no point have either of us, I think, ever said, I don't think that's going to land. Let's not do that. Like, we've been like, how can we make it land? We will make this land if it's the last thing we do.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely like a fun factor with writing together that I don't want to say I've never experienced it before with another co-creator because I've done a lot of co-creating and I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to like, poo-poo them or anything, but we have a very, I think, just silly time, which is really lovely when it comes to writing and publishing, which can often be a very serious business, a very stressful business. Every step of the process is joyful together, which is really lovely. But the other thing I think that we really bring to the table for each other is we have really opposite styles of working and different strengths when it comes to writing. And so this was one of the first things we figured out as we were drafting before we'd really even figured out what we were doing. We were like, we're going to sit down and plot out this book and then we're going to write it. And I think we both like different parts of the process. And we were each trying to overcompensate for that. So I was trying to do a really good job of the stuff that I'm bad at, and Kat was trying to do a good job of the stuff that she doesn't like. And about 2 chapters in, we were like, hang on, what if we split this up differently? And we realized that Kat really thrives in a first draft environment, kind of fast drafting something from scratch. And leaving blanks here and there, not necessarily fleshing everything out. It's kind of serves as a, I don't want to say skeleton draft because it definitely has more than just the skeletal beats of the scene. It's much more fleshed out than that. To continue using a dead body analogy, I guess. But when it comes to me, it is sort of the rudimentary, bare basics of what's going to happen and where the dialogue goes. And then I go through and I add that additional layer. So I'm adding descriptions, I'm adding flair to the dialogue, I'm adding jokes, and I really thrive in a revision place. So we're a couple of time zones apart, and the way that our process works is that Kat starts at the beginning of the day, writes a chapter, sends it to me by about noon my time, and then I get it for the afternoon and I play with it all afternoon. So I usually double the word count and then send it back to Kat, and then Kat gets to read the version of the chapter that's, much more polished, much more ready for print, and then
It's
starts
a
the next one.
dream come true. I write a bad chapter and then I read a good chapter the next day and then I write the next bad chapter.
And for me, it's a dream come true because the chapter just shows up in my inbox and I don't have to originate it. It's amazing. So we were both at the beginning, like tiptoeing around like the parts that we didn't like and just kind of struggling through them. And then we had a conversation. I don't even remember how it happened, but it was like, wait a minute, why are we both doing the parts we don't like when it's the part the other person likes? So I feel like I got like the best deal in the world because I don't have to do the first draft, and Kat also feels that way, and it's ideal.
Yes.
That's so interesting because I feel like, when people talk about the fear of writing, they're usually talking about like that fear of the blank page, but that's like never really been what I've experienced. I've experienced fear of like revision and then having to look at things like big picture and like move bits around while, you know, keeping your attention on like what's where and how everything works together. And so it's really good if you can have like, yeah, complementary fears or challenges when you're going to write together. So
It's
cool.
great. Could not have
Yeah.
asked for a better writing situation.
Seriously, I love the blank page because it's just like I can have fun and it doesn't have to be good and I don't have to worry. And then
Yeah,
magically it gets good.
and I am just like a bunch of like the most anxious bees in the world in in a suit. Like that's me. I'm just like a bunch of bees in a trench coat freaking out at all times about everything. So for me, a blank page is all of the possibilities of ways it could go wrong. And once it's already in my inbox, then I know exactly how it's gone wrong and I can fix it. And sometimes it hasn't gone that wrong and it's fine. And sometimes I have to completely rewrite the chapter. But I would much rather rewrite a chapter that went wrong than write a chapter that hasn't been written yet for some reason.
So let's talk a little bit about Arthur and Sal. As I said, I could just like I would, watch decades of show like seasons of a show about them, read hundreds of books. They're just so much fun to hang out with. So I'd love to know what went into crafting them as individuals, and then also their dynamic. Because it's they're both such have excuse me, they both have such unique voices that complement each other so beautifully.
Well, thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
It started with memes, which sounds surface level. And they kind of, I don't know, Rosie, maybe you remember it. I feel like I went into a fugue state and then they were
Yeah.
there. Like
It
some
really,
characters are hard to find and some characters just kind of like arrive in your brain. And I think it was like a meme. We hit like a critical mass of memes and then like suddenly they were just like real people and they had their own
yeah,
like
a big
opinions.
part of our writing process is us just sending back and forth like snippets of scenes that will never happen. And they're all like in script format, like Arthur says this and Sal says this, and then they do this. And it's just like silly little ideas of things that could happen, riffing on jokes that we've made. And it became this like 100 layered cake of jokes. And then all of a sudden we were like, wait, these are real people and real characters who have more depth than just the laughs. Like obviously our first order of business is to make people laugh with this book. That's really what we're trying to do. We hope people think it's funny. We hope people enjoy the kind of physical comedy of the two of them, the verbal comedy, the situational comedy. Like it's all just for laughs mostly. But as we got into it, we realized that Arthur and Sal complement each other quite well in that Sal is very outgoing and he's very shame is not a word Sal has in his vocabulary. He will do what he wants to do because he feels it. He is full of whimsy. He is full of um zest for life. He's quite the character in that he is living life to the fullest even though he is dead. And Arthur has always been afraid to live his life that way. He, before he became a vampire, was living in a lavender marriage with a woman who is also gay, and they're kind of hiding who they are from the world. And so, even though the world has made strides since Arthur became a vampire, he has been a vampire for some, I don't know, 60 odd years. He he's very much still living in that sense of hide the parts of you that are different because that's the world that he grew up in. So even though the world that they live in is much more accepting of queer people in many ways, it is also not necessarily as accepting of paranormal people. And he is kind of copying and pasting that fear of being othered onto this new identity that he's experiencing and going through he's really going through it is what I'm saying here, in terms of his understanding of what acceptance looks like. And does that look like being treated the same as everyone else who is not paranormal and not queer? Or does it mean being treated with respect for being paranormal and being queer? And how do you navigate that in a small rural Oregon town that's not necessarily as progressive as one of the cities or is dealing with its own internal problems? So it got much more complicated, and we found depth there, even as we started quite shallow with these jokes. And I think that's something that, well, or at least I hope that's something that is coming through in the pages, that these are more than, um, just two little talking heads having a silly time. They're very much people with feelings and a depth of personality and a depth of experience as they're going through these events.
Yeah, their relationship feels very lived in a way that you would expect a vampire relationship to be, because it takes place over a much longer time than human relationships do. Um, and I think that the steadiness and like the long-termness of their relationship sort of to lead into my next question, like helps build the stakes. And as I was writing a question about stakes, I was like, haha, vampire stakes. But like
We love a
um,
pun.
yeah. Um, but like so, you know, these two vampires have opened a bed and breakfast. Oh, one thing I have to just drop is the first line. The lobby of the Iris Inn was dead, but then so were its owners. Great opening line. Excellent, excellent opening line. Um, and the book establishes the stakes of the story pretty quickly. There's a murder at the inn. Uh, Somebody is implicated and there's a deadline for sort of exonerating themselves. Can you talk about like how building out these characters and their relationship and like the people that they come to meet around them, how do you help use that to build a story like with its stakes or whether that's how the plot, comes out? Does that make any sense at all?
Totally.
Okay.
Yes. For me, it's, every whodunit is a why done it, right? And so like the reason for the murder is always going to matter to the character, like all the motives have to like match up. Sorry, I'm thinking about like how I build like, we knew who the victim was from the beginning, right? It's in the pitch. And then we had to kind of sit down and be like, well, who are the suspects? What's going on in this world? And it sort of definitely built itself. Because by the time we were really plotting it, we had Arthur and Sal felt very real. And so it's intertwined in their lives very personally because it's not like it's that they're in, but then they get implicated because they're vampires. And
Yeah, and I think
so,
there's also an element of like, as we were building out the suspect list, we knew we were also building out the community that they live in
yes,
and the people who are going to either make or break their experience there. So, we have colorful characters like there's a werewolf who runs the coffee shop, a werewolf barista, if you will. And Arthur has like a little bit of a rivalry with him just from that initial like vampires and werewolves kind of don't get along stereotype. And then, of course, we also have like human characters. We have a human city manager. We have human government employees, um, business owners in the town. There's a sheriff who is a human, dastardly human. um, and it's very much about that concept of what do we have to do to be accepted in a place like this? And for them, their answer to that question is different, Arthur and Sal. Arthur believes that he has to assimilate in order to be accepted, and Sal believes that they have to be themselves in order to be accepted. And it's this push-pull of those two things. And so the cast of characters that we wanted to include, the suspects, the community, we really wanted them to all kind of be different balancing pieces on the scale, different weights on the scale for them, and help kind of push them in one direction or the other.
That's a really good point. That sort of like the character and the stakes you build and the commentary are all sort of working together to support themselves. I'm always very impressed by mysteries, like even cozy ones, because like they require you to like keep a lot of plates spinning. Because you have to do a lot of exposition so that you're meeting all these characters and that you understand who they are. And then there's like a plot that you have to uncover and all these different things.
Too, that was the most daunting part for me when I was like, I'm gonna write this cozy mystery, and I was like, how am I gonna do that? I don't know how to do that. Cat, help.
I love mysteries. So I'm like nodding along. You're saying like, yeah, that's the good stuff. That's like
Yeah.
the stuff you dig your teeth into, right? It's great.
And I actually had an editor for a previous book who told me something that was like mind breaking, which was that most fantasy novels are also mysteries. They're just not murder mysteries necessarily. Most of them are mysteries in some way. There is something going on in the world of the fantasy world. There's something going on with magic. There's something going on with the politics. Something is happening. Someone is doing something, and the characters have to put the pieces together. And this is especially true in like middle grade. Pretty much like every Percy Jackson book has a mystery at its center. It's just a different kind than we're used to when we think mystery. And that really changed the way that I think about stories and I think gave me the courage to write this because a mystery with like the capital M felt very scary to me. But then when I thought about it, I had written several books already that have a mystery, a central mystery. They're just like a medical mystery or a political mystery, not a murder mystery. And I actually do have the skills to do it. I just hadn't put them in that particular lens before.
That is a mind-breaking idea. That is absolutely fascinating. Um,
Yeah, I remember when he told me that, I was like, get out. Like, shut the front door, leave me alone. What do you mean? What do you mean every fantasy is a mystery?
yeah, because if you look at a
It'd be
lot of
great.
stories, yeah. If you look at a lot of stories from like that wide perspective, like you learn the rules of the world when they break, right? So that is like how your world building is gonna even help you set up your mystery or just like your conflict that is central to your plot. Wow. Yeah, I really love like when people bring things from one genre into others. I love to think of like genre as sort of like a buffet that you can choose from rather than like a category that you have to kind of slot your thing into.
I
How do
love that way of thinking because I hop genres a lot, and I feel like that's so this like you are not the genre that you are writing. You are a writer with skills and style and facets to your storytelling that can travel from genre to genre. So I love that way of thinking of like a buffet. It's nice. Makes me feel like I have more things to sample in the future.
Oh gosh, I totally lost my place in my notes and I cannot find them. Um, oh, okay. I guess in terms of like your approach to humor and the sort of the commentary on like the darker bits like bigotry, having conflicting ideas of how to fit into society, whether it's worth fitting into society, all these sort of things. I was just watching a YouTube video about the X-Men yesterday, so all these things are also like in my brain right now. Um, how do you balance like the humor or what's the relationship between like the humor and the darkness or like the bits of darkness? Because you can use humor to like distance, right? Like as a defensive type thing, but you can also use humor to like connect or to emphasize something. So how do you feel like you use it?
That's exactly it, isn't it? It's you can use humor to connect and you can use humor to deflect. And I think a lot of the humor that's coming through in the book it comes from Sal. And Sal is a sort of larger than life, silly, dramatic character. I like to think of him as like vampire Nathan Lane from the Birdcage. Like that's kind of what we're going for, is this very larger than life, silly kind of person on the outside who actually has a lot of depth to them and is going through something quite intense. You know, like in that film, he's going through this like experience of having to hide who he is from his future in-laws and not be out as queer, and that's really rough. And that's kind of what's going on here with Sal. Like he's trying to be himself in a place where Arthur is trying to kind of hem them in. And so the humor, I think, comes from a place of quite serious stuff. They're dealing with bigotry and they're dealing with it in different ways, and that creates comedy because of the contrast between them. So I think a lot of the humor is born from the exploration of the darker parts of the story. But then also I think that we are at our core as writers, we are trying to serve uh, jokes, and the rest of the story is the cracker on which the jokes are being served. This is a cheese buffet, and we needed some crackers to serve up our cheese.
You started to say we as writers. I thought you were going to say our clowns because like
That's true.
we're a bit clowns.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think most of our ideas, most of our plots are really born from, hey, this is a funny joke, how can we make it? So, yeah.
Nice. Um, yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's such a delightful book, and I really don't want to talk about like the events of it so much anymore because it's really I think lovely for an audience to sort of discover like the plot of the mystery themselves. But is this a world that you think you will spend more time in? Do you see yourselves returning to this world?
Definitely. There is a second book. It has been turned in. It's been sent. It's happening. We haven't like announced a cover or a title or anything like that yet, but it is coming next year. Um, and Kat and I would be so content to just write like 100 of these. So,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
hopefully they do well enough that our publisher wants us to do more. We have ideas for at least a dozen and would love nothing more than to just keep writing these books and working together.
Love that. And what is on your horizon otherwise, like in terms of your individual projects or other collaborations? What is yeah, where is your writer's journey taking you?
Well, Kat has another book coming out.
Oh yeah, I have a fantasy rom-com coming out from Red Tower in 2027. So not soon, but like kind of soon.
It's amazing and very funny. And I think that readers of Dead and Breakfast will enjoy it, even though it's not a murder mystery, so to speak. It is hilarious and delightful, and the characters kind of have that same pizzazz, I think, in terms of their contrast. I'm just like here to hype Kat up. I have a bunch of stuff. I actually have a collection for teens coming out, an anthology of queer Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPG stories, and that comes out actually in like 2 weeks, as of the recording of this. So September 16th, I think, is the publication date. That's called This Is How We Roll, and it has a bunch of amazing authors in it that are some of my favorites. We've got Andrew Joseph White, we have Marika Nijkamp, we have Akemi Dawn Bowman, Margaret Owen, Tara Sim. I'm just like brain is mush and I'm yelling out names now. But we have a bunch, an incredible lineup of people. I felt like I got to just commission all of my favorite writers to write stories specifically for me, which was amazing. And then I have another collection of stories. They're aromantic stories coming out next year, with a bunch of aromantic writers. And that is a sequel to the anthology Being Ace, and this is Being Aro. So I'm very excited about those. And I'm doing some other like media tie-in property work. So I have another Life is Strange tie-in novel coming out next year.
Hmm.
I'm
Wow.
extremely busy.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So many of these things sound really great. In particular, the D&D anthology, I already know there's like 6 librarians I need to like text to tell them about that. So that's
Amazing. Yes, please do.
that. I am so excited to see your novel when it comes. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and to share your novel with me. It's just been a real delight talking to you.
Thank you. It's been an
Thanks.
absolute pleasure.
Thanks. Listeners, now it's on you. This is your homework because I need to see more of these books. So go and get this one. Dead and Breakfast. It is just absolutely delightful. You can find it at your favorite independent bookstore or library website, wherever you like to go for books. Do you both have places you like to send people for books?
Absolutely. We're actually doing a pre-order campaign with Always Here Bookstore in Portland, Oregon. They are the queer-owned bookshop in Portland, and they're absolutely wonderful. We're going to be doing signed copies through them, and we will also be giving away some stickers as swag. We have a Dead and Breakfast logo sticker for those who want to rep the business. And then we also have a Coexist bumper sticker that has all paranormal elements instead of religious elements. So it's Sal friendly. He can go near it. And yeah, we're very excited. We'll be announcing that I think tomorrow, actually. So by
Oh,
the time readers are listening to this,
yeah.
it'll be up.
Sweet. I'll drop that in the show notes so that listeners can check out that link. Yeah. Oh, delightful. Well, thank you again. This has been Jen. Please check out Dead and Breakfast. And it is time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.